Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to KSR's rapid reaction of Kentucky's 75-55 win over Texas A&M. What was a much-needed bounce-back win for the Cats. Quickest way to summarize this one is that Kentucky got off to a blistering hot start in the first quarter, and then things fell apart the rest of the way. Or, I don't know if fell apart's the right word, but not really much else happened, right? Kentucky ends the first quarter up by 22. Ideally, you'd want to see them expand on that lead, right? Make it, a 30, 40-point game, only win by 20. But, there was never a point in the game where you thought, okay, Kentucky can lose this. There was never a point where you questioned if the Cats would get the win. Kentucky is now 19-7 and right at 500, sitting at 6-6 in the SEC. One of the main things, one of my main takeaways from this one, saw a new starting lineup. I proposed in my Texas takeaways article from the last game. I was like, is it time that Asia Boone start over Jordan Obi? And to me, it was a matter of, okay, you could see where Jordan just, I think she had scored, 7 combined points in Kentucky's last 3 games. Asia Boone had been much more productive. Asia Boone was already playing more minutes per game anyway. So I just kind of sat and wondered, like, okay, would there be a benefit here? Could Kentucky get out to faster starts with Asia Boone? Could Jordan Obi even benefit from taking a second to look and, get a feel for the game before checking in and all that? And then Kentucky did that, right? This game, they come out with the starting lineup, usual starting 5, except it's Asia Boone at the 2 instead of Jordan Obi. A couple minutes into the game, Jordan Obi then checks in at the 4. Kenny said he talked to Jordan about it, kind of before the game. He was like, hey, we want to try this with you when we get you more acclimated, more comfortable. And I think it ended up working out pretty well, right? Asia Boone had 19 points. One of her better games as a Kentucky Wildcat, right? 3 assists, 2 rebounds as well. And then Jordan Obi, I think it was 7 points in her last 3 games combined. Well, she had 8 points tonight. Not a spectacular game by any means, but more production. And I think for the most part, she did look more comfortable out there. 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists for Jordan Obi, right? And the minutes distribution there, Asia Boone played 33, Jordan Obi played 25. And I'd be curious to see if Kentucky continues to run that starting 5, the one they did tonight. I don't see why they wouldn't. And again, I just think, obviously you saw where Kentucky got up to a fast start, right? You saw where, again, you're up by 22 after 1, and you're thinking, oh, we're going to beat this team by 40. It didn't play out that way, but the faster starts are better than not having the faster starts, and personally, I'm a fan of this new starting 5. Toni Morgan, want to give her a quick congratulations. She broke the program's single season assist record tonight. That was previously set, when you're talking about breaking a record like that, you would think that record was set, maybe by Patty Jo Hedges back in the day. And it was before Georgia Amoore last season broke that record and set it for herself. Poor Georgia, her record didn't even make it through a full another season, as Toni Morgan has now surpassed her. Let's see, if I remember correctly, Georgia Amoore recorded 213 assists through 31 games, and Toni Morgan is now up to, I think it's 218, something like that. She's up to 218, or I believe it's 217. Regardless, somewhere in that area, through 26 games. So 5 less games for her to break that record. She actually had a pretty good night overall. Obviously, the assists, right? 19 points, 8 assists total, and 3 rebounds. So a good night for her. You look across the stat sheet. Clara Strack, she was getting bullied. I mean, not bullied as in like beat up, but let me just completely rephrase what I was about to say. She got bullied, right? But it was almost just like not her being picked on bullied, but like just being punched bullied. It's hard to explain. That probably made no sense. But my point being, it was just a really physical game. And, of course, that's the case basically every game. But at the end of the third quarter, specifically, there have been 30 minutes played, right? 3/4 of 10 minutes. And there have been just as many fouls called. 30 minutes, 30 fouls. And that's kind of what this game was. And it kind of sucks because, you get a 20-point win in the SEC, and that's something to hang your hat on, right? I know Texas A&M, they're not a great team. I think we all saw that tonight. But they just upset a ranked Alabama team, right? Like, A&M has a pulse, right? May not be much of one, but it is a pulse. And Kentucky, he won by 20. You want to celebrate that. But, man, like, watching that game, especially that third quarter, the third and fourth quarters, like, I was kind of, like, dragging, like, my eye. Like, it was just a brutal game to watch, and I hate the way the game's officiated. I hate the way defenses are allowed to play, really, because I just don't think it makes for the best product in the world, right? And we're all trying to grow this game, grow the women's game, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not sure you can honestly sit and tell me with a straight face that was fun basketball, right? For the last, 30, 35 minutes of the game. It was kind of brutal. And especially for that 10-minute stretch in the third quarter, made me want to rake my eyes out. Just looking at the stats across the board, Kentucky out-rebounded Texas A&M 52-32. Kenny Brooks in his post-game press conference was talking about how, we choose to play, we don't initiate physicality. That's the word he said. We don't initiate the physicality, but we'll play it. Like, we'll play a physical game of basketball, right? I tend to think about how, like Oklahoma, Texas A&M tonight, like all these teams, Texas, Ole Miss coming up on Sunday, love to be physical, like love to be up in your grill and punch you a couple times, right? Like, that's their brand of defense that they love to play. And Kentucky, it's like Kenny Brooks said, when you out-rebound a team like this, or when you out-rebound Texas at Texas, I know you didn't get the outcome you wanted, but, Kentucky can hang in this physical league. Again, I just don't think it's like the most fun thing ever. And I don't think it's really Kentucky's fault. I blame it really on, I guess, the rules, right? I blame it on the way the game is called. So, not the most fun thing in the world there. Uh, Amelia Hassett struggled. Didn't really get a whole lot out of her. It's kind of unfortunate because the last few games she's been doing good, and then it feels like she kind of fell off a cliff today. So, that's the thing with her. I feel like she's either hot or cold, right? You really don't know what you're going to get out of her. But again, not much happened outside of that. Tiani Key didn't have her best game in the world, but I guess a solid outing when you just look at points. She only shot 2 of 8 from the field, but had 7 points, I guess. So I guess that's something you can hang your hat on a little bit. 7 points, 11 rebounds, that's good. 2 blocks, and that's also good. But I don't know, man. It's good to be back in the win column. It is good to be back at 500 in the SEC. You look across the conference. Florida played Oklahoma close. I just talked about A&M upsetting Alabama not that long ago. Shout out Vanderbilt, who just beat the brakes off of Texas. That's not a sentence I didn't know I would be saying this season, but Vanderbilt looking very much like the second best team in the SEC potentially. So that's kind of scary to think about, right? Kentucky still has to go on the road and play Vanderbilt. Of course, you remember that was a 1-point game here in Memorial Coliseum not that long ago. But, this is a game Kentucky just had to win, right? We talk about hosting. I think right now, if the NCAA tournament started today, Kentucky would be a 5 seed. I don't think that'd be hosting. But I think they, if hosting is here, they're like right there. Like, I think they are very, very close. And I personally think if you can get a win between Ole Miss and Vandy, win out the rest of the way, and obviously, I guess, drop that South Carolina game, right? I think basically what you're asking for, Kentucky's 19-7. That's 26 games, so there's 4 more regular season games left. So it should be, just going off the order, I believe it should be Ole Miss on Sunday. I want to say, what's today's date? I think Auburn would be the next game, and then I'm either getting Auburn and Vandy switched, but the next 4 games in some order, it is Ole Miss. I want to say it's Auburn, but it might be Vandy. I don't know. Auburn/Vandy, and then Auburn/Vandy again, and then South Carolina. Right? I think I think you're looking to go 2-2, 3-1. I think if you can pull that off, I think you're. I mean, if you go 3-1 in these last 4 games, I'd say you're almost definitely hosting. But I think if you go 2-2, you can kind of live with it, and then see what you do in the the SEC tournament. So, Phoenix Stevens here in historic Memorial Coliseum, 20-point wins, 75-55 W for the Cats. Kentucky is 2-2 with Tiani Key back. Kentucky lost to Vandy by 1, kept it close with Texas. Game kind of got away from them in the fourth quarter, but then against Arkansas and now Texas A&M, 2 20-point wins. So again, I'd like to think Kentucky is getting closer to being who they were on January 1st when they beat LSU with a game winner. So, like I said, I'm Phoenix Stevens with KSR in historic Memorial Coliseum. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe. What are your thoughts on the game, right? Let me know. Give us your support because we appreciate it, right? And we'll continue to give content in return. So, until next time, peace out. Go Cats. Let's hope they can continue with the winning.